Now we will try to see the proof for de Broglie hypothesis. In 1927, Davison and Germer performed an experiment which has given the proof for the de Broglie hypothesis. The experimental arrangement used by Davison and Germer are shown in figure 2. It consists of two batteries Ba1 and Ba2, filament F, that is tungsten foil usually, metallic diaphragms which are represented as D, a target material represented as N, a circular scale S over which there will be an ionization chamber consisting of inert gases represented as C. In turn, that chamber is connected to an sensitive electrometer E. Initially, using the battery 1, filament is heated. Thereby, electrons are produced by thermionic process. Using the second battery, these electrons are accelerated, and by passing through the metallic diaphragms, a fine beam of the electron is produced. Thus, the arrangement involving the batteries, filament and metallic diaphragms is usually termed as electron gun. After having the fine beam of electron, now it is made to fall on the target. Davis and Germer have selected a single crystal of nickel as the target material. Now, when electrons are incident on the hard crystal, we expect that electrons will scatter in different direction. To collect those scattered electrons in different direction, ionization chamber is moved on the circular scale. Correspondingly, the ionization current produced will be noted down from the electrometer E. By keeping some fixed voltage in the second battery, Davis and Germer made an electron beam to fall on the hard crystal, and using the ionization chamber, all the electrons are collected and correspondingly current was noted down. This procedure is repeated for different accelerating voltages. Say for example 44 volt, 48 volt, 54 volt, 60, 64 volt. Correspondingly, the graphs is plotted between measured ionization current with scattering angle phi. For 44 volts, 48 volts, 54, 60 and 64 volts as shown in figure 3. From figure 3, it is observed that current was recorded only for phi equal to 50 degree, and further the current is increased with increasing voltage, and it is maximum for 54 volts. Now these observations tried to explain by Davis and Germer as follows. In the first step, Davis and Germer tried to calculate the de Broglie wavelength associated with that electron beam using de Broglie hypothesis. And we have the expression lambda is equal to 12.26 angstrom by root of V, where V is the accelerating voltage. So as in this experiment, it is observed that for V equal to 54 volts, maximum current is recorded. So on substituting V equal to 54, the lambda value is found to be around 1.66 angstrom. Further, as current is observed only at phi equal to 50 degree, Davis and Germer proposed that now in this experiment electrons are not behaving like particle. They are behaving similar to X-rays diffracted from a crystal. So using Bragg's law, that is a 2d sine theta equal to n lambda, they tried to find the lambda value. And as the target was nickel crystal, d value is 0.91 angstrom, and when phi equal to 50 degree, theta will be 65 degree. So by substituting all those values, lambda is found to be around 1.65. So when we compare equation 1 and 2, as the lambda is in perfect agreement, it indicates that in this experiment, electrons are behaving like waves. Hence, it is the proof for de Broglie hypothesis. Now, we'll try to understand an interesting uncertainty principle proposed by Heisenberg. To be precise, this is the consequence of de Broglie hypothesis. To understand this principle, assume that we have two cases, one macroscopic particle and an microscopic particle. You can choose any macroscopic particle such as a duster or even a smartphone. So assume that we have one macroscopic particle and we know the mass of the macroscopic particle, and it is under motion with velocity v, which is also known. That means we know the mass and velocity of that macroscopic particle. At any interval of time, now we can find the position and momentum simultaneously. Can we do that? The answer for that question will be yes. Like after an interval of say 10 seconds, if we try to get the position, that is x will be what? Velocity into t. Velocity is known. T is what? 10 seconds. We can have the x value. In the meantime, if we try to find the momentum value, p will be what? M into v. M is known, v is also known. So momentum can be also be measured simultaneously. On the other hand, when we go for the microscopic particle such as an electron, now under such situation, it is not possible to get the precise position and momentum simultaneously. It is because now the microscopic particle will be represented by a wave packet, and further the width of that wave packet depends on the number of traveling waves that are superposing. Say for example, if we superimpose large number of traveling waves, the width of that wave packet will be reduced. If we superimpose less number of traveling waves, we will have a larger width. Now under such situation, if we want to have the precise position of a particle, what we need to do? We have to pick a wave packet with smaller width. Then it indicates that the position of the particle will be a finite or a single value. But under such situation, if we try to find the momentum value, momentum will be what? H by lambda. Now to get that small width of the wave packet, we have superimposed large number of traveling waves. Means we have multiple value of lambda, implying that there is large uncertainty in the momentum. On the other hand, if we want to have the precise momentum of that microscopic particle, then we need to go for a wave packet with larger width. To get that, we need to superimpose less number of traveling waves. Now, once we have smaller value of lambda, it implies that we have almost single value of momentum, but the position will have multiple value. That means in that wave packet, the particle may be anywhere. It may be at the ends of the wave packet, or it may be at the center of the wave packet. So that means now we have multiple values of position. So thus, Heisenberg proposed that whenever we are measuring the position and momentum of a particle simultaneously, in that measurement there will be always an uncertainty in position, that is delta x, and there will be an uncertainty in momentum, that is delta p. The product of these two uncertainty will be always greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. The same principle can be even proposed using energy and time. That is, if you are simultaneously measuring the energy E and time t of a particle simultaneously. Again, in that measurement, there will be an uncertainty in energy, uncertainty in time. The product of these two uncertainty will be greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. So even we have one more relation. The product of uncertainty in angular momentum, that is delta L, and uncertainty in angular displacement, that is delta theta, will be greater than or equal to h by 4 pi. Finally, coming to the significance of this principle, as we observed that it is not possible to have the precise position and momentum simultaneously. So one should one should not think of finding the precise values. Instead, we should go for finding the probability values. That is, instead of finding the precise position, one should think of finding the probability of position. Similarly, probability of momentum, probability of energy, and henceforth.